The Galactic Empire was a machine of conquest, spanning countless worlds and governed by a strict hierarchy. Alien species were classified, categorized, and controlled. Humanity was a recent addition, barely worth notice, technologically primitive, militarily insignificant. Reports marked them as emotionally volatile and intellectually average. Their homeworld, Earth, had surrendered with barely a whimper. To the Empire, they were nothing more than dust on the heel of progress. General Kale Rayner didn't disagree. He had crushed rebellions on 6 continents, glassed moons, and broken the wills of warlords from the outer fringes to the core realms. When he arrived on Virex 9 to wipe out a pocket of insurgents, he expected no surprises. His orders were simple: eradicate all resistance and cleanse the zone. The outpost was already in ruins when he landed. Smoke drifted across shattered buildings. His troops moved through the wreckage with clinical precision. No survivors. That was the assumption, until a scout reported a biosign. 1 life. Faint. Small. Kale followed them into the remains of a supply bunker. There, amidst rubble and scorched debris, lay a human infant. Not crying. Not afraid. Her wide eyes stared up at Kale with eerie calm. "Dispose of it," an officer muttered. Kale didn't respond. He knelt, scanning her with his wrist calm. No identification. No family data. Just a newborn, wrapped in a tattered thermal blanket. She reached toward his armor and grabbed a segment of his gauntlet. He stared at her for a long moment. Something about her, the silence, the gaze, the grip, made him hesitate. Uncharacteristically, he gave an order that contradicted protocol. "I'll take her." The crew didn't question him. No one questioned Kale. She was brought aboard the flagship Imperium's hand and assigned a containment berth. No threats were expected from an infant, let alone a human one. Kale logged her under the designation Array 001. He told himself it was curiosity, a study specimen, an observation of a lesser race. The Empire allowed such indulgences to high-ranking officers. He didn't name her. The AI defaulted to Era from the file code, and the name stuck. Era didn't cry, didn't wail or fuss. She watched, alert, focused. In time, she followed movement, tracked voices, mimicked sound. The med scans showed abnormal synaptic development. Her brain was growing faster than baseline human rates. The science staff flagged the readings, but Kale shut down the reports. He wasn't sure why. He moved her to private quarters. Fed her himself, spoke to her in imperial high speech. She responded in tone before speech, understanding moods and commands before she had words. In less than 2 months, she was walking. By 6 months, she was speaking fragmented sentences in 2 languages. Whispers spread through the ship. The human baby was a novelty, but an unsettling one. Some called her a ghost. Others claimed she had no heartbeat. False, but the myth persisted. One telepath reported an echo when trying to read her. The echo gave him a migraine for 3 days. Kale ignored the rumors. He began teaching her strategy games. She absorbed them with ease. One day, she beat a junior officer in a tactical sim. The officer laughed it off until she beat him again. And again, he ordered a full scan. The DNA markers were human, unaltered, but her neural pathways were forming new connections at an alarming rate. No genetic modifications, no implants, just raw, accelerating intelligence. Still, the Empire's records didn't care. She was human, no threat. A year passed. She asked Kale where she came from. He didn't answer. 2 years. She asked why humans were considered weak. 3 years. She asked what her last name was. He ordered another scan. This time, a deep-layer archive query, tracing any ancestral data from her residual biosample. The AI took longer than usual. Query in progress. It repeated every hour. Kale found himself checking the results daily. Finally, at the end of the 3rd year, the system responded with a single line: match pending. Flagged for classification override. Kale frowned. What classification? The system didn't respond. He stared at the sleeping child. She looked peaceful, ordinary, but nothing about her had ever been ordinary. He sent a priority request to Central Command for further data. Within minutes, his request was denied. Redacted. Clearance insufficient. Kale Rayner had never been denied access to anything in 20 years. He looked at the child again, and for the first time in a long, blood-soaked career, General Kale Rayner felt something alien. Not fear, but anticipation. Era grew quickly, too quickly. Within 5 years, she spoke 7 languages fluently, including 2 extinct dialects the Empire hadn't used in centuries. Her mental capacity rivaled most command-level officers, and her understanding of abstract concepts, time compression, quantum causality, economic destabilization, was not just advanced for a child. It was superior to most adults Kale had ever served with. She didn't act superior. She asked questions, constantly, about starships, about battles, about why the Empire never feared humans. She listened more than she spoke, processed more than she responded. In training simulations, she never made the same mistake twice. By her 6th year, she was tutoring cadets 10 years older. But none of this made the Empire take her seriously. She was still the human girl, a fluke, a pet project. The only reason she wasn't dissected was Kale's protection and his status. A few of his peers suspected he was grooming her as a novelty or perhaps a future weapon. No one considered the idea that she might be something more. One day, during an idle conversation with a high-tier AI, Era asked a question that triggered a security lockdown. If neural symmetry in transdimensional probability is fluid, she said, why do Empire navigators still rely on fixed-pattern jump routes? The AI paused. Restricted topic. Clearance denied. Era looked at Kale and said, that wasn't an answer. Later that night, Kale received a message. No origin. No signature. Just one line. She remembers. Kale, try to trace the sender. Nothing. He ordered a full security sweep. Clean. He brought in intelligence analysts. No leads. He asked Era where she'd heard the phrase. She tilted her head and said, I didn't. I just said what made sense. Kale tightened her access protocols. She bypassed them within hours. The Empire sent a diplomatic vessel bearing a cloaked envoy. No name, no face. The figure requested a private audience with Kale and the girl. Kale refused. The figure left a message anyway. Watch the name. After the envoy departed, Kale initiated a full-spectrum genealogical analysis again. Still no result. Still flagged. Still restricted. Era kept learning. She could analyze fleet movements and predict outcomes with disturbing accuracy. In a strategy exercise, she found a flaw in the Empire's siege doctrine that had gone unnoticed for over 300 years. When the test supervisors dismissed her conclusion, she rewrote the exercise parameters and demonstrated a 70% increase in efficiency. When Kale confronted the test directors, they shrugged. She's human. Impressive, but irrelevant. No threat. He didn't argue. But privately, he knew better. She began to ask about Earth. Not just where it was, but why it was sealed. Why no live feeds existed. Why human cultural records were quarantined, even in the Empire's open databases. Kale gave evasive answers. She wasn't satisfied. She questioned everything. Empire doctrine, the concept of universal obedience, the belief in genetic superiority. Her questions weren't rebellious. They were logical, surgical, and unrelenting. Then came the incident with the telepath. A routine mental scan was required before her entry into advanced war college protocols. The telepath was a Class 4 psionic, certified. He entered her mind with the usual technique. Within seconds, he collapsed, bleeding from a nose, screaming. His mind had recoiled from something it couldn't describe. He was institutionalized. Era didn't understand what had happened. I didn't do anything, she said. He walked into a storm and tried to breathe. Kale demanded answers. The investigation was closed without explanation. He knew the signs. The Empire was afraid. But afraid of what? They wouldn't say. Era was placed under observation. Not by guards, but by eyes Kale couldn't see. He doubled the scans. Still no data. Still blocked. The name, her last name, was buried. Buried deep enough that not even his authority could pull it free. She began building things. Quietly. Devices, maps, language trees. One day, she showed Kale a hollow map of ancient jump routes not used in over a millennium. These were the paths they used to escape, she said. Who? The ones like me. Kale asked what she meant. I don't know yet, but I will. He didn't sleep that night. For the first time since the child had entered his life, he realized he was no longer in control of the situation. He hadn't raised her. He had awakened her. At 13 standard years, Era was no longer dismissed. Officers deferred to her in simulations. Advisors quoted her assessments in council chambers without realizing they were hers. She stopped asking questions, not because she had no curiosity, but because she'd already found most of the answers herself. Quietly, without permission. The Empire's greatest defense was bureaucracy, and she slipped through it like a ghost. Kale noticed the shift. She no longer walked behind him. She walked beside him. The request for full lineage authentication came from High Command, not from Kale. The system reran the scan using forbidden databases. An hour later, Kale's quarters went dark. His terminal shut down. His comms were cut. Seconds after that, 3 dreadnoughts emerged from subspace above his sector. An admiral contacted him. No explanation, just orders. Secure the subject. Do not speak to her. Do not engage. This is now a conclave matter. Kale demanded context. He was told nothing. He ignored the order. Instead, he reactivated the deep scan terminal through a private line, breaking half a dozen Imperial security laws in the process. The file was sealed behind a quantum lock. He cracked it. The name appeared. Era Drake. The name paralyzed him. His breath caught. His pulse slowed. His instincts screamed. This name was not just forbidden. It was feared. In a corner of the Empire's most secret archives, there existed a list of red line designations. Words so dangerous they triggered automatic censorship. The name Drake was one of them. Kale found fragments. Buried scraps. Not full records, those were gone, but enough. A man named Elias Drake. Human. Military strategist. Philosopher. War criminal. Savior. The words conflicted, confused, contradicted. He led a revolt. Not against the Empire, but against the precursors who built it. He tore down AI gods. Crippled star networks. He created autonomous human enclaves that survived for generations before vanishing. And then, silence. The Empire hunted down every trace, every descendant, every mention. Gone. Except one. Kale stared at the girl he had raised and realized she wasn't a mystery anymore. She was a time bomb. When she entered the command deck, no one stopped her. The crew had already sensed it. She radiated authority they hadn't been trained to obey, but couldn't ignore. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Kale hesitated. I didn't know. You do now. He nodded. I'm being summoned, she said. To be contained. He didn't deny it. I'm not going, she said. And you're not going to stop me. He looked at her. She wasn't threatening him. She was stating a fact. Kale made his choice. He called in his security chief and gave a silent hand signal. Lockdown override. Total isolation protocol. His ship was now a sealed vault, unreachable without direct authorization. The Admiral's fleet sent immediate demands. Kale ignored them. Era accessed the ship's core systems. Not through standard input. She walked into the network hub, placed her hand on a quantum terminal, and the lights dimmed. Moments later, the ship's AI issued a warning. Unauthorized access. Control subverted. Kale's own ship was now hers. She opened the long-range transmission array and broadcast a narrow-beam encrypted signal into deep space. Not an SOS. Not a message of surrender. It was an awakening code. Across distant systems, ancient satellites blinked to life. Derelict ships powered up. Subterranean bunkers on forgotten planets lit up for the first time in centuries. Human sleeper nodes, long buried, stirred. Era spoke one sentence into the void. We are not extinct. We are not lost. We are not afraid. And across the Empire, someone responded. Kale received a coded ping. Human frequency. Impossible. Earth had been silent for generations. The transmission was brief. Acknowledged Drake. Standing by. The Empire's admiral sent a final threat. Surrender the girl, or be obliterated. Kale transmitted one word in return. Denied. His ship turned toward the galactic fringe, engines charged, and jumped to coordinates unlisted in any modern map. A location once erased, now reactivated. Earth's true coordinates. Era stood at the viewport. The galaxy had forgotten the name Drake. Now it remembered. The Empire mobilized faster than Kale anticipated. Within 48 hours, 5 fleets converged on the outer rim, tracing the unauthorized jump. Surveillance probes were deployed, communication arrays scrambled to intercept anything emanating from the lost coordinates. But nothing came through. Earth was back on the star charts, but the world that awaited them wasn't what the Empire remembered. Kale's ship dropped out of warp above a planet shielded by layers of dormant defense grids. Defense systems older than most current Empire tech, yet still operational. They didn't fire. They scanned, recognized Era's presence, and powered down. The world accepted her without question. What Kale saw on Earth shattered every assumption the Empire had taught him. Cities were intact, but hidden beneath layers of living camouflage. Artificial satellites drifted silently, monitoring incoming space-time distortions. There were no armies, no starports, no signs of active civilization. Yet Kale could feel the presence of something vast and coordinated beneath the surface. Era walked among it like she belonged. Messages came in from human enclaves across the galaxy, all sending confirmation codes tied to the Drake legacy. These were not random survivors. They had waited, buried and silent, for the one who would wake them. Era had not just inherited a name, she had inherited command. Empire analysts scrambled to decode the spread. The number of reactivated enclaves exceeded all projections. These weren't colonies. They were contingencies prepositioned for coordinated reemergence. Autonomous, independent, invisible until now. Aboard the Imperium's Hand, now under Era's control, Kale was given access to ancient Drake archives. They contained battle data, political predictions, even profiles of current Empire leaders years before they rose to power. Elias Drake hadn't just escaped history. He had predicted its trajectory with terrifying precision. The Empire launched a probe into Earth's atmosphere. It disintegrated mid-entry. Kale intercepted a secure channel among the fleet admirals. Their plan was simple: annihilation. Not capture, not negotiation. Full planetary purge, using kinetic rods and fusion warheads. Era listened in silence. They've already made the decision, she said. Even if I surrendered, they'd erase us. Kale didn't argue. He knew it was true. Earth's grid activated, not to attack, but to transmit. A single pulse broadcast across the galactic mesh. Within minutes, Empire infrastructure in 17 sectors experienced cascading failures. Not explosions, not sabotage, just quiet collapse. Subroutines rewritten. AI cores paused. Starships shut down in mid-flight. Era watched without satisfaction. This wasn't vengeance. It was inevitability. She didn't launch an attack. She sent a message. A simple file distributed across the Empire's central net. Untraceable. Unblockable. A record of Earth's past, of the Drake resistance, of the Empire's own history. Edited, sanitized, and now laid bare. The effect was instant. Not rebellion, not panic. Doubt. Soldiers began asking questions. Civilians requested archives. Entire planets paused in silent reflection. The Empire could suppress speech, but not thought. Empire Command initiated a countermeasure. Total blackout. Planetary lockdowns. Arrests. Censorship firewalls. But they were too slow. The truth had seeded itself across too many minds. It grew without needing to be spoken. Era convened a council of awakened human nodes. Not as a leader, but as a peer. They debated openly. Some wanted retaliation. Others sought isolation. Era chose neither. We will not become what they are, she said. But we will no longer hide. Kale stood beside her as her words were broadcast. Not to the Empire, but to the humans still inside it. The scattered, the silenced, the unnoticed. A call not to war, but to awareness. Within months, the Empire fractured. Not from violence, but from erosion. The pillars that held it tall, obedience, control, fear, were hollowed out. Systems stopped following orders. AI cores refused kill protocols. Soldiers turned off targeting systems. Era returned to the stars, not to lead a crusade, but to rebuild what had been broken. Kale remained at her side, not as a protector, but as witness. The child he had once found in the rubble was no longer a question. She was the answer the Empire had never wanted to hear. Humanity, forgotten and dismissed, had not died. It had evolved, and now it remembered who it was.